Hi, this is Bhartiya, and welcome to another episode of TFR Insights. And today we have with us Ian Hood, Chief Technologist of Global Service Providers at Red Hat. Ian, first of all, welcome to the show.
Well, thanks for having me today. Looking forward to a good discussion today.
Telcos, they are leveraging a lot of open source technologies. The future networks that they are building, actually current networks they're building, all are software defined. So can you explain just a bit the current state of network, and what role is open source playing there?
Well, actually, the role of open source is playing in almost every technology, every industry. So almost all innovation comes from open source. And so the real key is that for the mobile network operators, they're taking advantage of open source to build their platforms that enable them to deliver their services. They've been doing it for the past almost 5 years now with OpenStack, for virtualized platforms. And now the move for 5G to deploy those kinds of applications and that next highway, if you will, for the mobile architecture, they're going to lay that one out on top of OpenShift. So really, it's kind of a platform play for Red Hat to enable them to deliver their services and to automate those in a way that they can get their services to market much faster.
Can you talk about the work that Red Hat is doing specifically in the 5G space?
So again, it is a space that we're working on, have been working on for probably at least a year now, since sort of 5G got into the latest version of the wireless specs from GSMA. The release 16 has now just come out. So we've been doing this for at least a year now with many of our partners, technology partners that deliver the 5G core, as well as those that deliver the 5G RAN technologies. And we've been working with our customer partners for at least a year on this journey, to get to the point where we are today, that they're getting ready to start deploying a cloud native, containerized on bare metal approach for delivering their 5G solutions, both in the core and in the radio access network.
Red Hat and Samsung made an announcement recently. Talk about that announcement.
So this is really a good announcement for both, Red Hat and Samsung. It's a partnership in where, they can now build an entire 5G architecture from the core out to the edge, all the way to the radio units, and build out that architecture so they can deliver not just the radio access services, that we want, for ourselves, for a consumer, but they also are going to be delivering multi-access edge compute capabilities on top of those networks and deliver those enterprise applications for Industry 4.0, healthcare, automotive, aviation, all of those industries. So really it's a partnership play for us that allows us to work with them, as we have with other partners, to solve this edge application capability for the mobile operators.
What are the unique challenges that 5G is posing when it comes to application? Number two is that what other Red Hat technology are part of this announcement or the work that you're doing with Samsung and other carriers as well?
Okay, so really kind of the challenges for 5G is first, what we're trying to do is trying to open up the architecture from all aspects, from the data center all the way to the edge. That's kind of a tough one because most of the technologies to this point have been proprietary. So that's the first challenge. The other thing is that it's a distributed architecture. So distributed architectures are always more complicated. So the key thing to actually solve this problem is to add what some of our customers have called brutal automation to actually enable them to have effectively push-button ways to deploy all these different edge sites, manage them appropriately, and enable them to deliver their services very quickly. So in terms of the technologies that they're using, right, they're using, as we already mentioned, OpenStack for their virtual machines that they're deploying. They're using OpenShift for the containerized microservices applications on bare metal. But they're also using technologies from us in terms of our OpenShift containerized storage. They're using our automation technologies known as Ansible. And in addition to that, we let them use whatever tools they like on top of our platforms for security capabilities, as well as for business policy capabilities, so that they can actually get telemetry back and forth from these edges into their architecture. That's our middleware technologies, things like AMQ streams. People know it maybe as Kafka in the open source community, things like Fuse, Data Grid, those technologies on top of OpenShift, in addition to the applications that come from the partners to deliver the end-to-end solution.
There was a lot of roadblocks when it comes to 5G deployment, but I think early this year, the US government or FCC, they kind of opened up, CBRS as well band, so that carriers can leverage that. How much role did that play in further democratizing 5G technologies?
I think it really is a huge play in that, the majority of people that are actually deploying 5G are the operators who spend lots and lots of dollars on the spectrum, right? And now if some of the other companies want to go deploy what we call a private 5G architecture for some of these large industry factory automation use cases, then CBRS becomes a very useful technology for that capability, because that allows the enterprise to have both a secure but high performance capability on their premise. And they're not really sharing that because, again, of data security laws. They want to make sure they can do that. So CBRS is really kind of a game changer in expanding the scope of 5G beyond just the traditional operators.
When we look at Red Hat, you are doing a lot of work in edge space. You also help with AI, ML workload, networking. So when we look at 5G, where does it fit into Red Hat's, does it fall in the telco division, networking division? Talk about that.
So from a Red Hat perspective, we make one set of products that covers all industries, if you will. So each of our platforms and then the enhanced capabilities we put on top of those platforms, that's one thing that's basically built on open source. There's an open source project for every product and vice versa, so that we can actually make sure that anything we do becomes available to the industry. But roughly about 4 or 5 years ago when I joined Red Hat started a telco business. And so basically we focus on that business and focus on meeting their requirements to deliver their services and capabilities in their network and in their IT side, because we've actually been working with them, for longer than that, 5 years on the IT side and the digital platforms. So really, this is just kind of a way to focus our energies and make sure we meet the requirements to enable them to deliver, for the past while, their 4G networks, their wide area networks, as well as now their 5G network. So really, it's a focus from a business perspective, and our technology teams really drive those requirements into the products, and then we push those requirements through the upstream communities, right? So that's really kind of how we make things happen for telco. I think the one thing I wanted to mention is that the real key here is that we're making open platforms so that our customers have the choice of solutions, best of breed for networking and for IT and for AI/ML, and that we're working with partners around the world, not just Samsung, to make this possible. Right? This is really kind of the key thing that Red Hat is doing, making that choice available to the end customer and reducing the risk while driving up the speed and time to revenue.
Yeah, and thank you so much for taking your time out today and talk about the work that Red Hat is doing in 5G space. I look forward to talk to you again. Thank you.
Well, thank you as well. Appreciate you taking the time.